IR receiver and the remote to go with it. The same technology that people use on televisions and things like DVD players, we have the IR receiver. The remote will essentially broadcast an output, and the receiver will then read and then decode that output. The major downside of IR technology is that in order for it to work, you need a direct line of communication between the receiver and the remote, unlike other wireless technologies such as Bluetooth or Wi-Fi. More on that, if you really want to look into the downsides of it, there's a very old game system called the Philips CDI, which its controller, think of like an Xbox controller of modern day, but instead of connecting over, wireless modern like Bluetooth or something, it connected via an IR remote and receiver. And let me tell you, that was one of the worst ways you could ever possibly play a video game, I think, ever in existence, but nice. Anyway, referencing the diagram down below and momentarily on screen, pause if needed, we'll be using pin 11 to read the signal input from the receiver. We'll be using the 5 volt. We'll be going to the center pin, VCC, for power, and ground will be going to the minus pin, to ground it. The included IR remote will need a separate battery for power, which I do not believe is included. We can then take the code included below to test the parts after uploading to the board through the Arduino IDE. After we hit upload, we would want to go to the serial monitor and start listening on the same baud rate on the serial.begin statement. So we can go there and we can see, if I open it up, beginning IR receiver started. Now all that's left to do is I will take the remote and I will quite literally ready. I will aim, although I guess the receiver is facing this way, and I will fire. And as you can see in the terminal output down here, if I press a 5 key, it comes out with that same hex code as it decodes of E31CFF00. You can take that code. Obviously, there's different types of controllers. So, for example, I might aim my Samsung remote for my television and aim it at this same receiver, and that version of a 5 might not be the same version of a hex code for what this 5 is. So that's why, for example, if you take your LG TV remote that you have up in your bedroom and then take it downstairs and try to point it at the Samsung TV you have in the living room, it might not always work as intended. And that's because different companies have different codes that they use in order to control each of their devices. So in this case, if I go over here and like I said, I press 5, I will quite literally, it will do the E31CFF00. If I change it to 8, it's AD5-2FF00. If I go to 4, it is F7808F00. I can change it to like volume down, volume up, and I can just press all these, but each one has their own unique, every single button on the remote has its own unique hex code that it will decode once it hits the IR receiver onto the board. And again, the reason this is not universal is because sometimes at some point, maybe in the future, you want to add another function to a remote, and instead of like having to upgrade everything else, you can just have it send out a new unique hex code, and then you can change the logic to obviously form around that code, if that makes any sense. And that's about it for the IR receiver and the remote. Thank you guys for watching.